Hello, everyone. This is Grant Callen with Empower Mississippi. We're back for another installment of our video series called Coffee and Conversation. And I'm delighted to be with our two guests we have today. Ashley Gallimore is the Chief Talent Officer at Republic Schools, a charter school network. And Charles Stanley is the Director of Schools for the Mississippi region, and he's also at Republic Schools Charter School Network. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Well, this series has focused on how schools have transitioned to distance learning as the pandemic swept across our country. So how has that transition gone for students and teachers in the Republic Charter Network?
Our network has an interesting challenge of having schools here in Mississippi and in Nashville, Tennessee as well. And so we had a school that was going out on break and a school coming back on break. And so it was extremely important for us to come up with a plan really quickly. And so it took us 2 weeks to get our plan up and running and off the ground so that all scholars had access to technology and access to quality materials to study.
I think in addition to that, we were really committed, of course, to making sure that our students had access to distance learning as quickly as possible. But it also just reinforced our commitment to leading through strong relationships. I mean, all of us were going through the COVID-19 pandemic together. We still are going through it together. And so we really also committed to making sure we were checking in with our families, checking in with our kids, checking in with our staff, just to see how they were doing. And identify, any needs that they had, connect them to internal and external resources where we were able to, so that we were caring for them not only in terms of, what is learning going to look like with our buildings closed, but how do we make sure that you have what you need to be able to take care of yourself as well.
One of the things about this pandemic is it is asking so much more of our teachers than we've ever asked of them to be able to transition from a traditional classroom teacher to a distance learning teacher. So as you think about the hiring process and what it takes to become a teacher, what qualities do you all look for in teacher candidates?
One of the things that we're looking for now more than ever before are folks who are adaptable and flexible. I mean, we said that for a long time, but I think what we really mean now is there's a shifting landscape. We're not sure yet what next school year is going to look like, whether we'll, predominantly be back physically in person in schools or have to do some version of distance learning like we started to do in the spring. And so ultimately, we're looking for folks who, of course, are going to do what's best for kids, but are going to be willing to change and adapt their practice, their approach as needed to ensure that our students are truly getting what they need, whether we are physically in person or doing distance learning. So folks who operate with that adaptability, mindset, but are also able to move quickly as we get new information, new data on, what our students need to be able to continue in their learning. I think another thing that we're really looking for are folks who are going to lead through our Republic core values. We need folks who are committed to our mission and are going to do whatever it takes to be able to achieve that. But it's equally important the way that we get there and how we get there together and how we care for one another in that. So we're really looking for people who are going to lead through people first, care for our scholars, care for our families, and care for their colleagues. And then I would say the last thing, and this has been an evergreen quality that we've looked for in our teachers and will still continue to be, folks who are going to have high expectations for our kids and fundamentally believe that our kids can succeed. They can do challenging work, and they are going to rise to the occasion time over time, as long as we give them access and support in being able to do that. So we're really looking for folks who are going to lead through taking personal responsibility for ensuring that our scholars get what they need, and, again, be willing to adapt their practice to ensure that that happens.
And I think with this new landscape, it calls for a different type of teacher. It looks for one who is an innovator and a problem solver. We get to redefine what education looks like. And, that is our mission as our charter network, is that we're reimagining education in the South. And this is the time for people who are about that.
The traits you just identified are things that we always need, not just during a pandemic. So how do you think going through this experience is going to make for better teachers on the other side?
I think it's building a sense of endurance. Teaching is a challenging job, and it's also evolving. And I think that's the part that is that public education is working towards now. It's like we've had a system that has had many flaws. and errors within it. And now is the time to flip that on its head and to make a true change. And this makes it even more important that our staff reflects that because it's ultimately what we're training our kids to be able to do as well. We want them to be able to go into this world and innovate and problem solve and help us move the world forward. And it takes the work that we do as educators to set them up for that. And I think that's what we are here to do and what we're setting out to do as we do our work.
So you have the interesting challenge of recruiting teachers in 2 states and possibly recruiting from even more than those 2 states. So talk to me about the pathway to become a teacher in Mississippi. Is it a good pathway? Is it hard? Is it difficult? Is it working?
Becoming certified in Mississippi, it's not an easy lift. I think first and foremost about the time commitment that it requires. Pursuing certification, many folks are juggling, both in-person or online coursework through their ed prep program. They're working full-time as a lead teacher or in a first-year teaching internship, figuring out what it actually means to be a great teacher, manage a classroom, establish themselves in many cases as a brand new professional as well. So it does require a lot of time and capacity to be able to meet those certification requirements. On the flip side, it's also, a pretty significant financial lift. When we think about the cost of just a certification exam alone, each certification exam is about $120. Most folks need to take more than one in order to meet all of their requirements. Plus, on top of that, they have tuition costs for their ed prep program, which usually, can be thousands and thousands of dollars depending on what route they end up going. So for many people, that can be a barrier even just in pursuing certification to begin with, but also in being able to persist in obtaining that certification. It's not an easy lift. And so I think we really do need to rethink some of those barriers that are preventing really high quality people from entering this field.
As I stated before, I was a principal of our elementary school, and there's no alternative certification program for teachers who want to teach in the K-5 or the K-4 space. And so that's a serious challenge as well, as our elementary school is about to grow to full capacity. There's going to be challenge in staffing our 4th grade for certification, just because it is such a challenging certification to find and to find the quality as well as like all the things that we mentioned above that we look for in a person. Those things aren't just in everybody. So it makes the search even more challenging.
Well, and so there's a debate going on in education communities about whether certification even matters. What's your take? Does a certification matter to the quality of teachers once they get to the classroom?
I think certification matters from the standpoint that we need to ensure that all of our educators are highly qualified to teach. I also think, though, that there's multiple measures and the way that we can assess and measure for that. Certification exams are certainly one measure. It helps us identify, what that person's content knowledge is for the subject area that they're going to be teaching. So it's important from that standpoint. But I think there are, several areas that we do need to rethink or really push our thinking around. I think one, we need to give folks, a longer runway to become certified. Like I talked about before, there are really, big time and financial implications. And so the longer of a runway that we can give folks to, meet their certification requirements, we're going to see an uptick in the number of people who are able to pursue, but also persist through their teaching pathway. At Republic, in the last 3 years that I've been here, we've seen many teachers who have had really strong results in the classroom, really strong student achievement data, but needed more than 1 year, and in some cases more than several years in order to meet all of their certification requirements. So I definitely think the longer amount of time that we can give people or more flexibility we have in that, we are going to see more people enter and persist. I think a second thing to rethink is, how are we focusing more on ensuring that our teachers are getting really high quality training and support of what it looks like to do this work on the ground? The single most important lever that I experience as a teacher, and I know many others experience as a teacher, is what that coaching and feedback looks like. So not only are you getting the content knowledge to be able to teach and are you getting support through your ed prep program, but do you have a mentor teacher or a strong instructional leader who's in your classroom, observing you in action, on a weekly basis, giving you high quality feedback, opportunities to implement that feedback and really prioritize how to grow your practice as quickly as possible. So that's another area I think we really need to lean in as we think about what that pathway looks like for teachers. And then lastly, I think what I mentioned before is considering multiple measures. So in addition to completing a ed prep program, in addition to completing your certification exams, how are we looking at other measures to assess for teacher quality, including how teachers are growing and performing over time, and then what story their student growth and achievement data is telling as well.
So one of the unique things about charters in Mississippi is that charter schools have a little bit more freedom to hire teachers that are not certified yet, but let them work in the classroom while they're getting their certification. Has that freedom been helpful, and is it sufficient? Would you like more freedom in that area?
The freedom to do that has certainly been helpful. And I think it's especially been helpful when we think about our network's commitment to advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion. We know how important it is that our scholars have educators who reflect their backgrounds, their experience, and the additional impact that has on scholar learning and success. And so being able to hire, a certain percentage of teachers who are not yet certified really enables us to build a more diverse and high quality teacher pool. And has allowed us to bring in people that we may have, not historically been able to, who are doing really great work with our kids. I think expanding that capability even more while also ramping up what teacher training and support looks like can help remove some of those financial and time barriers that we talked about earlier, but also help us get people sooner into the profession who have the ability to make a pretty significant impact with our kids.
So when we think about teacher training programs, one of the things we often hear from educators across the state is that their teacher training program did little to prepare them to the actual challenges they would face in the classroom. What do you think about Mississippi's teacher training programs, and what can we do to strengthen them?
I think the first sign of the progress of those institutions is directly correlated to the amount of adults that are able to pass a praxis exam. The work of teaching, honestly, is best crafted and developed through the actual work. And so, programs can do more to increase, their students' visibility in classrooms during their college experience. That was something that I found to be very, very helpful for myself when I was a student. We had opportunities to student teach and have lessons that can be delivered from us, but it's truly not the same experience as being an everyday classroom teacher. And when you have a strong instructional leader in your building, they're able to help guide and mold you into the master teacher that you're aiming to be. And that work really does happen on the ground.
So should we raise the bar or make it more difficult to get into teacher training programs, or should we cast a wider net and strengthen the programs so that once you get out, you actually have the skills you need to teach in a classroom?
I'd say more of the latter. I think if our college and universities took a deeper inventory of their teacher education programs and look at the statistics around their students who exit from their programs and their ability to pass those praxis exams, I think it'll give them a really good insight into things that they need to make a reformation around within their institution. I was fortunate enough to go to a university in Nashville that did just that. They made the praxis exams a part of the experience and did a really great job of preparing me for those exams.
In Mississippi, there's been a lot of conversation around our teacher shortage. And so first, do you accept that there is a teacher shortage? And then second, if you were talking to lawmakers and you were trying to give them advice on how to address that, what's the first or second thing you would do to help Mississippi schools recruit and retain great teachers?
Yeah, so I definitely agree. Everything that we've seen with our network, there definitely is a teacher shortage across the state, I think across the nation. That story hasn't changed. In terms of what we can do to address both teacher recruitment, but also teacher retention, this is the work that my team and my role as Chief Talent Officer really leads on every single day. I think in terms of teacher recruitment, one, we need to start identifying folks who are interested in education career pathways much earlier. So that shouldn't happen after they graduate from college and, are on the job search. It should really start happening while they are continuing to pursue their undergraduate education. And I think having more opportunities for, residency teacher programs or associate teacher programs that operate more like an apprenticeship or an internship where folks are, getting a lot of mentorship, a lot of practice and what it means and looks like to be a lead teacher, even before they enter that profession, full time as a lead teacher of record is critical. It sets folks up for success. It allows them to persist, and certainly has a huge impact on, student academic outcomes as well, and the ability to drive that much sooner. I think on the retention aspect of things, the biggest way to retain your people is, one, to make sure that they're successful and they're getting the support that they need. That is what people care about first and foremost. They need, one, to have access to resources to be able to do really great work, but they also need really strong instructional coaches, really great feedback, at-bats and in coaching that they're receiving on a regular basis, to see that success and see that translated in the work their scholars are doing, and then the growth that they're seeing in the academic achievement that they're, getting year over year. So I think the more that we invest in what it looks like to coach, train, and develop our teachers, we're going to see higher retention rates, and that's going to help chip away at the shortage that we continue to see year over year.
And do you think schools could play a larger role in the teacher preparation process?
I do think they can play a larger role. I think there are a lot of missed opportunities to ensure more alignment between the work and the coaching models that schools are doing with ed prep programs. We don't always do a great job of talking to each other, and I think that's part of the problem. But I also think we need to do some work in establishing what is the bar, right? What are the most important things that especially someone new to the profession needs to know and needs support on? And how are the things that we're doing, every single day in schools with those individuals also connected to the type of support that they're getting through their ed prep program? So I think if we can push in that area and really drive that alignment, people are going to feel like they're getting much more wrapped around support than they are now.
I used to work for a charter network in New York that actually had a partnership with one of the local universities. And it was an opportunity for us to be able to get our associate teachers, so teachers who are not yet certified, in a program and certified. And the assistant principals from that charter network also taught classes at that university for students who were pursuing their certification. So it also gave them an opportunity to learn a lot about the teacher profession and to get more, real connection to the experience. And then it allowed us to get more certified teachers. And so I think partnerships like that could be really powerful here in Mississippi, where we work together to fight the shortage that we have. And I think if we can get people who are just interested in our missions and our visions, they can help us get them to the finish line by preparing them for certification and having a partnership with us to help them see the way that we do things and how that helps inform their practice as people who prepare teachers.
Well, this has been a great conversation. I'm a big fan of your work at Republic. Y'all are changing lives every day, and I'm thankful for what you do in Mississippi and in Nashville. And thank you for joining me for this conversation. I learned a lot.
Thank you for having us.